Slayer. The lead. Tie the leader. Gain the lead.
The first time LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony played each other, it was an event. 2003, they were two of the most highly touted rookies in ages, and everybody showed up to see them square off. Jay-Z, Ken Griffey Jr. Fast forward 17 years to tonight when the Lakers visit the Blazers, and the two face off against each other once again, with so much having happened along the way. High school kids, when they first met, they now each have kids of their own. They've changed cities, teams, jobs, and all the way through, the constant has been each other. When in 2004, Melo stepped onto the court for his first ever playoff game, guess who was in the stands wearing his jersey? LeBron. When in 2010, LeBron needed someone to talk to as he watched his jersey burn in his hometown, guess who was at the other end of the phone? Carmelo. And when last year, Melo fell into basketball purgatory, ousted first from Oklahoma City and then Houston, it was LeBron who vouched for him the loudest, even suggesting his own Lakers team as a destination. I asked Melo about that when we sat down earlier this week. Last season, after the Rockets thing fell apart, LeBron was pretty public saying he'd like to play with you, but it was up to Lakers management. Did those talks go anywhere?
I mean, I'm not a guy that, I need this, or can you do this? I would never do that, right? Because I know it's bigger than that.
You mean you would never call LeBron and say, hey,
I've never called him and said, what we doing, or I need you to do this for me, I would never do that. Right? I know for a fact he would go to bat for me, but I don't feel comfortable putting people in that situation, whether you're my friend or not.
And now you actually are going to play against each other, national TV game. You know it's going to be kind of a wild environment.
It's always. Those are fun games, though. Right? I mean, we're 17 years in. I mean, I remember sitting in, in New Jersey in high school about to play him for the first time. Like we're here 17 years later, still doing what we do, and what we love.
That is really amazing. Melo and LeBron actually met for the very first time at a Team USA basketball camp in Colorado Springs. They barely spoke there, although LeBron has said he came home from that week and told his friends he'd just seen the most talented player he'd ever been in front of. Then, 8 months later, was that game in New Jersey, the first time they actually played each other, two high school powerhouses squaring off. And that is where their friendship really began. Both teams were staying in the same hotel right across the Pennsylvania border. LeBron and Melo ran into each other and ended up sitting on a staircase for hours, talking about what it was like to be surrounded by people, but also alone, talking about love and fear and life and all the weight that came with their outrageous talent. It's a conversation that has now lasted for 17 years, and it will continue tonight, both during the game and then also after, when they will break out a bottle of wine and talk about pretty much everything except for basketball. And that will be an event in itself. Two grown men who can now say that they've known each other for longer than they didn't. Opponents sometimes, brothers always. Kirk, finish this sentence for me. If Melo and LeBron had ever actually teamed up, then blank. Because we have heard over and over from these guys that when LeBron James and Dwayne Wade did their contracts with the teams before they played for the Heat together, they made those 3-year deals instead of the usual 5-year maxes. And the idea was to become free agents together so they could team up. And they said to Melo, take the 3-year deal. And instead he took the 5-year deal with the Nuggets.
If LeBron and Melo would have teamed up in their prime, it was must-see TV. Probably would have had the highest ratings ever in history because I would have wanted to see that. I mean, you talking about LeBron James, who's arguably the best player to ever play the game of basketball, and you're talking about one of the best scorers that the game have ever seen in Carmelo Anthony teaming up in their prime. It would have been must-see TV. I would have watched every single game, period, point blank. You almost had me crying just now, Rachel, with the introduction.
It's pretty amazing, right?
It's really amazing. Like, that's true brotherhood right there.
And they're both of an age now where they have known each other longer than the time they didn't know each other, which just blows my mind.
Yeah. I wonder how the games fit together, though. Like, you covered those Heat teams pretty closely. And the reason why those three players work so well together is like LeBron and Dwayne Wade do enough different things that they complement each other. But Chris Bosh faced the
very different thing.
Yeah, a very different thing. LeBron and Melo, in some ways, their games might be too similar. Is that? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, well, look,
we're up close to it.
They're playing the same position. And obviously, Eric Spoelstra with this Heat team sort of brought in positionless basketball, so I'm sure he would have made it work. But Chris Bosh was the X factor for that team.
Absolutely.
So many times. He wasn't the most talented player on the floor, but he tipped the scale once you put in your LeBron stuff and your Dwayne Wade stuff. Chris is the one who tipped it toward the win again and again. That shot, that Ray Allen shot, that we will always remember, that beat the Spurs in that Game 6 and helped win them their first title. Who was the rebound from? Chris Bosh.
Absolutely.
Right? So I just think there's so many little ways where Chris Bosh influenced that team. I can't say for sure they would have won more titles if Melo had joined them instead of Chris, or maybe they would have won less. They don't win that year, right? That would have been the second year that they didn't win after being in the finals. Maybe that team would have been broken up in some way. So it's the biggest what if. I think it would have been great for Melo, though.
I
think if Melo had gotten out of what was then New York and then come to Miami, it would have been good for him.
I can't say this. They did steal what Chris Bosh did for the Miami Heat was they were the second team to invent small ball. Because we were the first team with the Celtics. When Doc Rivers used to move Kevin Garnett to the 5, move me to the bench and put James Posey to the 4. And that's what Spoelstra did. He moved Chris Bosh to the 5 a lot, stretched the floor, made the paint a little bit more open for LeBron and D. Wade to drive because Bosh could shoot the 3 so deadly. So.
Yeah, Mike D'Antoni might have a little bit.
I was going to say, there's some other people
Those
that they have a claim to it.
But we're talking about people who won championships.
Oh. And see, that is why Kendrick Perkins can end every sentence.
That's right.
He says, oh, I'm sorry, did you see my ring? Thank you very much. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus. All right, we are at the quarter season mark, which means we can start talking awards. Awards season officially open.
We started weeks ago.
I didn't like that we started weeks ago. Okay. Now I'm comfortable. Right. ESPN.com, Tim Bontemps conducted a very complex, very reasoned, thought-out straw poll of who he asked where and which city and all of that.
He applied the correct that point value.
Right, depending, right.
And there's 100 voters for the MVP, and he asked 100 people.
That sort of thing. So look, he also asked the extra one because they do the extra one fan vote. So he did all the exact duplication of what it's like when you hold an MVP vote. And here's what he came up with: reigning MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo, the overwhelming favorite among likely voters with 803 total points, followed by LeBron and Luka. So Brian, do you agree with this? Is the MVP this year Giannis is to lose?
I voted in the straw poll. I voted for Giannis as the MVP
1
in the
minute
straw
remaining.
poll. They are on pace for mid to high 60s in wins. There are some people out there, Mike Adams, our former colleague, has been batting the drum. He thinks they're going to win 70 this year. We'll see about that. They're a top 5 offense, top 10 offense, top 5 defense. He's the pilot of both. He's putting up terrific numbers, averaging 13 rebounds a game.